This is the Waupaca County Board of Supervisors meeting.
Okay, if we could all take our seats, please. Good morning. I will call this Waupaca County Board of Supervisors meeting to order, and it's Tuesday, April 16th. It is 9 a.m., and we will now have roll call.
Kevin?
Jerry, push the button. Oh,
Okay, roll call shows 26 members present, 1 excused.
And Clerk Lodewagen, has the open meeting statement been legally fulfilled?
It has, sir.
Thank you. Today, when we stand for the sign-up meditation, please remember we complain about our weather. The snow, the ice, all we have to do is turn to the south to see the tornado devastation in Ohio, Mississippi, Texas, and the lives taken, so we're really, really lucky. Please stand for the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Okay, you all have the agenda in front of you. You read it, went over it. Is there a motion for approval? Mr. Zog?
I move we approve the agenda as presented.
There's a motion, Mr. Zog, for approval of the agenda. Mr. Morick?
I second that motion.
A second by Mr. Morick. Questions? Please vote.
Last chance to vote. Motion carries 26-0.
Likewise, the minutes were included of the 3/19/19 meeting. Do we have a motion to approve those minutes? Mr. Gerald Murphy?
Move to approve the minutes of the last meeting.
The motion by Mr. Gerald Murphy for approval. Supervisor Laird?
So moved.
And a second. Any questions or discussion? Seeing none, please vote.
Last chance to vote. The minutes carry 26-0.
Okay, we'll go on to ordinances. Number 7, ordinance/amendments to the General Code of Ordinances. A is 2019-670, amendment to Chapter 34, petition number Z-004-19, Town of Lynn, William and Lynn Ponto, for a zoning map amendment from the AE district to RR-O district to create a 4-acre parcel. Good morning.
Morning. So the Pontos are creating this 4-acre parcel. They're looking to sell their house and their existing structures. And so what they're doing is they're taking it out of farm preservation. They're using 2 development rights to do that. So by doing that, they're creating a 4-acre parcel. And part of that process is rezoning it to our rural residential overlay district.
Supervisor Golding?
I make a motion to approve the amendment
For Bill and Lynn Pano.
Okay, there's a motion by Supervisor Golding for approval of that amendment. Supervisor Jonley?
I second that motion.
And a second by Supervisor Jonley. Do we have any discussion or questions? Seeing none, let's vote.
Last chance to vote. The motion carries 26 to 0.
Thank you, Ryan. Number 8 is resolutions. A is resolution number 1, 20-19-20 redistricting.
Now therefore be it resolved that the Waupaca County Board of Supervisors request the state legislators before the start of the new redistricting process follow the 2020 federal census to pass legislation that creates a fair, nonpartisan process for the preparation of state legislative and congressional redistricting plans that promote more accountability and transparency, and to prohibit the consideration of voting patterns, party information, and incumbent residence information or demographic information in drawing the maps, except as necessary to ensure minority participation as required by law. And be it further resolved that the Waupaca County Clerk is directed to forward on the copy of this resolution to Governor Tony Evers, the Wisconsin Counties Association, and to the Waupaca County Legislative Representatives.
Mr. Vasquez?
I make a motion that we approve that.
There's a motion by Supervisor Peter Vasquez for approval. Mr. Johnson?
I second that motion.
A second by Supervisor Johnson. Discussion? Questions? Please vote.
Last chance to vote. The motion carries 25 to 1.
B, resolution number 2, 2019-20, 2018 budget amendment. Transfer from a general fund to transportation services fund.
Now therefore be it resolved that $500,000 be transferred from the general fund unassigned fund balance to the transportation service fund, and now therefore be it further resolved that these funds will be committed in the transportation service special revenue fund for the purpose of the county highway maintenance and construction.
Mr. Fleece?
I will make a motion.
Mr. Robert Fleece made a motion for approval. Mr. Fedowitz?
I would second that motion.
That's second by Mr. Dwayne Fedowitz. Discussion? Questions? Please vote.
Last chance to vote. That motion carries 25 to 1.
Number C is resolution number 3, 2019-20, Chapter 980 Placement Committee.
Now therefore be it resolved by the Waupaca County Board of Supervisors that it hereby is established a temporary committee to provide and for the purpose of set forth in 980.08 Pren 4 Pren DM Wisconsin Stats. Be it further resolved that this temporary committee shall consist of the Director of Waupaca County Health and Human Service Department or his or her designee, a representative of the Wisconsin Department of Health Services, a local probation or parole officer, the Waupaca County Corporation Council, or her or his designee, and the Director of the Waupaca County Planning and Zoning Department or his or her designee, and or Waupaca County Land Information Officer. Be it further resolved that this temporary committee will meet on an as-needed basis, is vested with the authority and responsibility set forth in 980.08 Pren 4 Pren DM Wisconsin statutes, and its members are not eligible for compensation or reimbursement under the County Code of Ordinance Chapter 2.
Mr. Quisman?
I move to approve.
Motion by Supervisor Quisman for approval. Mr. Terry Murphy?
I will second that, sir.
And a second by Mr. Terry Murphy. Discussion? Questions? Please vote.
Last chance to vote. That motion carries 26 to 0.
Okay, we're down to number 9, are reports. This is going to be the UW Extension Impact Report by Kenny Tank and Chris Vial. Morning, Penny and Chris.
Good morning. Good morning, everybody. I am Penny Tank from the Extension Office, and I am just going to do a real quick recap of our Extension Impact Report and let Chris View introduce himself as our Area Extension Director. There's also an article on the back page explaining a little Chris's background and his position in our office. And so we welcome the opportunity to share our report 3 times a year usually. And on the front of our report today is an article that I provided from our 4-H program for our Super Saturday Project Day. And this is a wonderful opportunity with our 4-H program. We have about 300 people that usually attend our project day, and there's 40 classes offered from 4-H volunteers as well as community members, and just a great chance for people to learn something new, for youth and adults to work together. We have youth teaching classes, and you can see some of the evaluation results there in my article. And on page 2, Sandy Lang, our Human Development and Relationships. We have some different titles with our change in extension, so trying to have those roll off my tongue isn't as easy as they had been. So Sandy is Human Development and Relationships, and she provided some mindfulness workshops at the new Recovery Center, which is in downtown Waupaca. If you're familiar with that or not, there is a Waupaca Recovery Center. And so she did some training. It's called Taking Care of You, which is a, you're trained in this, and it explains what that program is. And that was a nice partnership and some very positive evaluation results from that work that she plans to continue that with other people as well. Jessica Beckendorf shares a little bit more on her background with leadership development. Jessica does run and coordinate our Leadership Waupaca County with a steering committee. Pat Craig is on our steering committee from our own county board here, along with a group of others that have been past participants or community members interested in leadership. And so Jessica works with that program, and what she wanted to highlight was just some of her own personal training that she continues to do to learn more about leadership and be able to continue to improve that program and share with different things. One thing she talks about in here, like facilitating difficult conversations. This was something she did at the Waupaca Library. She hosted 3 or 4 conversations for people to come and talk about a topic. I forget which, I think one of them was, I can't remember now, but they were where she hosted a conversation where people could come and she facilitated, where people could share their feelings and learn from each other. And so just a variety of things in the leadership development area. Greg Blondie, our agriculture educator, shares about Cow College with a very interesting photo in his article that they are actually dissecting dairy cow udders as a part of learning about Cow College. And the program, this is a very popular program that Greg runs every winter, where there are specialists come from Madison. That's one of the connections with Extension and Madison, and that we're able to have specialists come to help with our programs and help teach people in our local area. And so he talks about Cow College, and then we have another new employee who is supporting Waupaca County. Hannah Phillips was hired, and Chris can maybe share a little bit more about her position. She was hired as a Healthy Communities Coordinator for our area, for which Chris is our Area Extension Director, is what we have now. Catherine Neiswander had been in the role prior to Chris. And Hannah will be working with Outagamie, Winnebago, Calumet, and Waupaca County. And so she'll be working with coalitions here in the county and doing some work with them and with Christy Grabilska in our FoodWise program. And on the back page, we have the article about Chris, and I will let him introduce himself.
Good morning. It's a pleasure to be here in front of you. I had the opportunity to begin as an area director early February, So some of you may have seen me lurking in the back of meeting rooms or as participants in my role. I am serving Area 10, which is Calumet, Outagamie, Winnebago, and Waupaca counties. So I have the opportunity to work with some excellent extension teams and provide them with some administrative support as needed. As you can see, one of the things that I mentioned in my small blurb is you can see that for those of you who might notice the colors, there was a color shift from our last edition in which we changed from Extension Blue to University of Wisconsin Red as we begin we finalize our transition to our new administrative home to the University of Wisconsin-Madison. We will be officially called the Division of Extension as part of University of Wisconsin-Madison. And this provides us some opportunities to become a little bit more closely aligned with some of the academic and research specialists so that our extension educators and our team can continue to do all of the great things that they have done, but they will have even closer connection to those research and other academic resources to bring them back and directly affect the citizens of Waupaca County. So we're really looking forward to that. My background is I have just about, not quite, 16 years of extension experience. All of that in the 4-H program, so I have had the opportunity to work with Penny as a colleague for my entire extension career, and I know and truly believe in the work that that extension does and the lives that it impacts, and I look forward to continuing to support the team. Okay, so please mark your calendars. We would like to mark your calendars to invite you to the county board tour, which is slated for Tuesday, June 18th in the morning. We will have the opportunity to showcase the Waupaca area, and we're still formalizing some of the stops, but they will likely include a stop at the fairgrounds, a swing by the highway facility on the way, and also an opportunity for supervisor sparings, who will also be mayor sparings, to be able to share about the city of Waupaca. So we'll look forward. More details and a more formal invitation will be brought to you at next month's meeting.
Any questions? Supervisor Gray?
My question is for Chris. How did you decide what to name the departments, changing them from what they used to be? I noticed agriculture stayed agriculture, 4-H youth development stayed that, but the other one, community development, is new, food wise is new, and human development relationships. How did you come about deciding those were going to be the new areas?
So not in a vacuum. So Foodwise was one of the first ones that they really, as an organization, they actually did some marketing and some brand research to find out what people would resonate with, and I'm trying to even remember. I guess we've used Foodwise long enough that I don't remember what the predecessor was. So that's a WNEP, which didn't really explain as much. Foodwise is actually has. Thank you, Penny. And so that was just what there was some sample or some focus groups that were done as far as what would resonate. The other, as far as human development and relationships, that was done based on the research. There's now 2 different subgroups as a part of one very large institute that is broken into 2 groups. One is health and well-being, which is focused on the healthy living, and the other is human development and relationships. So looking at families, families and the interactions and the interconnectedness that families have, and all of the pieces that support that. So really, it's based on the most current research that is happening throughout the universities and throughout University of Wisconsin, and kind of align with that and allow opportunities for. Really what it allows is staff members to identify with areas of focus so that they can, instead of being jacks of all trades, to be a little bit more focused in their work. And there are some additional delineations. Greg Blendy is an agriculture generalist, and there are some more specified or narrowed down programs that provide support that Greg is affiliated with that are further breaking down so that there are connection to those campus specialists and cohort groups to get that information, the research out to the citizens of the respected counties.
Other questions? Mr. Spearing?
Thank you. I just gotta tell you that apparently the county garage in the fairgrounds takes precedent over our city, because I've been informed we've got 90 minutes to show you our whole city, and it's gonna be real tough to do, because we got some pretty good things going on in Waupaca that we're proud of, and starting out with our new schools, city hall, some of the businesses that are expanding greatly. But 90 minutes don't give you much time to have a tour of the city, so just want to let you know that apparently we don't have that much clout. Thank you.
Thank you, Jack. Any other questions? Okay. Thank you very much. The report will be on file in the clerk's office. Okay, we'll go through the new highway facility update with Mr. Beiersdorf, our highway commissioner. Oh, annual report first. Okay.
Good morning. Good morning. The 2018 financial report, we're going to go through it. Probably takes us 20 minutes after practicing with the finance committee. If you've got any questions, please hold them to the end. That way I can get through the booklet, and then I'll address them after that. So 2018 is behind us now. We can look back at a few things that were not forecasted. Most of it was snow plowing related. I know that Snowstorm Evelyn put a big hit on our budget for winter maintenance, as did this last spring in 2019. But we're going to go through the book. If you've got one, you can follow through with me. If not, I'm just going to go through page by page as we skip around. So page number 1, as you see it up here on the board, is who we are as far as our highway commissioner, our highway committee, and then our staff that helps me put together this book, which includes our office manager, Chris. So thank you, Chris. The next page we're going to be looking at is just a big picture breakdown of all of our capital projects, which include our construction, asphalt paving. Some of it goes into design costs associated with paying engineers to design our bridges and our structures. So a lot of it is all for bigger construction projects. Last year we spent $4.167 million on construction projects. And then the graph below that is what we had spent on maintenance here in 2018. Maintenance alone was $3.851 million. We've had an overrun on winter snow plowing of $264,000. We did have a project which we named on this booklet as Kahneman Road that came back to bite us a little bit. So we had to make a decision on how we were going to fund that project. Outside of that, we were pretty much on task with our maintenance outside of winter snow plowing and the Kahneman Road project. My next page is a breakdown of what we do on our state highways. Anything from concrete repair to changing out signs to mowing. We had a pretty busy year on the state. The state's really holding back on dollars to allow everyone to stay busy on the state's dime year round. So there's a little bit of a struggle there that we're going with the county versus the state. And I'm saying, you want 13 of my employees to plow snow for you, well then help me keep them 13 employees busy during the summer as well. And so there's a struggle going on right there, because if the state says, no, you're not spending any more of our dollars, we're broke, well then what do I do with them 13 employees? 9 times out of 10, they're sitting on my county budget, which I don't need them for all of that work. So that's a struggle, not just here at Waupaca County, but it's on all of the counties. We spent $2.3 million on state work, state maintenance last year. My next breakdown is what would we reference as page 1. Page 1 is just a breakdown of how our equipment operates. Each individual piece of equipment has an original purchase price, and then there's a cost of maintaining it. And then as that piece of equipment is being used on a construction project, whether it's the states, the counties, or for a town or municipality, we recoup revenue to cover the costs of that vehicle. Them costs of that vehicle are by per hour rate, and them rates are set by the state so that all counties are uniform on the rates they set for the equipment. A breakdown of that moves us all the way to page number 10. And overall, we had a profit on our equipment last year of $211,749. That's good. Where did we take some of the losses? It occurs when you have an accident that's not insurable or unrecoverable, or such as, I know that one of our bigger costs this year, we had an employee that had the underbody of his plow hooked to scale. Well, that was a $26,000 expense, which you need to recover them costs over time. What we did in 2018 was recovered $211,000. We were down from 2017. In 2017, we had $324,000. So we were down in 2018 as far as over recovering for our profit on equipment. Page 11 brings us to our buildings and grounds operation. There's a cost to have all of our buildings and grounds. We spent $463,628 this last year to have buildings, which included your utilities, your gas, your electric, your water, propane for our satellite shops that don't have them services. In 2017, it costed $430,000 to have our buildings, so we're up a little bit in the costs of having our buildings. So you have a cost, and then you can you get reimbursed from the state on some of that. The state reimburses you for storing or having equipment ready to plow or service the state roads, so they do reimburse us some of that, of which the total buildings and grounds to be reallocated, our revenue was $428,371. A lot of it has to do with square footage and how much we get reimbursed per square foot from the state, so we recover them costs. Next page is page 12, which is our highway administration. It's a breakdown of what it costs to have an admin team oversee all of our invoices, our bills, our payments, our administrative area, our office. Basically, the first one where it says labor, highway commissioner, $60,904. That's what I charge towards administration, and that's where them costs are reflected. It's not a reflection of my wages or anything like that, or my fringe benefits. Reason being is because sometimes I'm also chargeable to construction projects, and I'm chargeable to townships if they hire me to do something for them, and so some of my wages are in a different category. Where it says other labor right below it, that's the cost to have Sue, our highway office specialist, Lisa, our accounts payable, and then Chris, our office manager. So that's a breakout of their labor. When we move all the way down to the bottom of page 12, the administrative costs were $404,547.10, an increase from 2007. It's a lot in that you almost can project what your administrative costs are going to be, and therefore you then take last year's costs pool of all the expenses, and it generates an administrative rate of which we turn around, and then we go and charge administrative rates to the state and the county to recover them expenses. So our costs are always recovered. It's just based on what rate we set on our invoices for the following year. Page 13, other administrative expenses. Not a whole lot in this one, except when you get down to patrol supervision. Where it says labor, that's the cost for me to have a patrol superintendent and an operations manager. However, them two employees' wages of $130,281, 45% of that is then recovered by the state. The state pays for their labor and for their two vehicles. So we do recoup some of that $130,000. Where it says machinery rentals, if machinery rentals in this category is just a breakdown of to have vehicles number 2 and 3 for our patrol superintendents, of which they're reimbursable. Page 14, Other administrative and general expenses, we've got an LRIP program that we oversee for the entire county. If I work, or Sue, my office specialist, works on a local road improvement project for a town, she can charge time to that. The state reimburses us that. Local bridge aids. Local bridge aids this last year was significantly large in that a lot of townships had bridge projects that they redid this last year, and the county is part of a program, or our county has a program where if you pay into the county, I believe we recover about $53,000 in tax levy money. It goes into the bridge aid program. These townships then can resolicit applications to get reimbursed portions of it. So this last year with big bridge projects, we ended up having $192,000 in expenses. Let's keep going on to page 15. Page 15 is our fuel handling expenses. Like a gas station, the more fuel, diesel or unleaded, whatever we sell, the more we sell, the lower our overhead is on that, because we can, same thing with that, we use our dollars to purchase the fuel up front, it gets cost pooled, and then we set a rate on our fuel usually once a month, and that's why our diesel and our unleaded prices fluctuate and change, is because the cost of gas throughout the year changes as well. So we charge ourselves, and whoever buys fuel from us helps us recover the overhead rate, which includes the costs of labor. We have a guy during the construction season, paving season, that he goes out to our construction projects and uses our truck to fuel ourselves up. He charges his time to fuel handling. Overall, if you go way to the bottom of fuel handling variance, whether it was over or under recovery, it says $10,351 in parentheses. That means that we over recovered on our fuel handling costs. The truck didn't break down this last year, for instance, or we didn't have as many inspections as we anticipated in the past, with now having more above ground fuel tanks. Now we're getting rid of the below fuel ground tanks because it's cheaper, less inspections. In 2017, we over recovered $6,865, so we're doing good on the fuel handling side. One note is in 2018, we through our system, we processed 289,000 gallons worth of fuel, whether it's diesel or unleaded. So that's pretty much right on track for the year before. We're using as much fuel as we did. We did the same amount, or used the same amount of fuel. It's a lot of fuel. Shop operations, it's the cost to have mechanics on staff, to have supervisors overseeing the equipment maintenance plan. With that, we charge our direct labor, which is the cost for the mechanics to work on a piece of equipment. So if Dwayne works on a piece of equipment, his costs is located underneath that direct labor, and then also the fringe benefits that he may have is also allocated right here in the $269,000 column. We recover them costs because we charge that as an expense to our equipment. So the equipment is paying for Dwayne's time on that machine, and that it's important to keep the iron moving, because by moving it and charging it and keeping projects busy and things working, it's generating time on that equipment, which generates revenue, which covers the expenses to have mechanics. And of course, if someone is negligent or has a breakdown, or we have an accident, that's not good. Even in snow plowing situations, our county plow trucks get stuck, and sometimes we can't self-recover using a grader or a big piece of equipment. We hire a towing company to come and yank us out of the ditch or wherever we're hung up, and that cost also gets charged to the equipment. Overall, it sets a rate of total shop operations to be allocated. In 2018, our percentage was 66.34%, which was down from 75.18% in 2018. So we're actually reducing our shop overhead. But it takes time. You just can't do it in 1 year and have a big swing unless you lose employees. Page 17 then, we're on a breakdown of where it says our shop overhead rate then at 66.34% is located on top. It's from the page before, and it's a breakdown of all of all of our overhead to be able to oversee the department and maintain it. Page 18 is a reconciliation of current year's depreciation. We have to depreciate our equipment as we have to depreciate everything. As it ages, we have to reduce the value of it so that in 15, 20, 30 years, it depreciates out. And 9 times out of 10, that's the time you want to sell it, when you basically have no more depreciation on it. That's the time to sell it, trade it in. However, we have to look at what our equipment purchasing budget is, and if we're making money on a machine, why would you get rid of it just because it's depreciated? So with that, if you move right in the middle of where it says machinery and equipment, just on our machinery and equipment, we had to depreciate last year $715,180 of depreciation expenses on our equipment. That depreciation just isn't lost, but it's not cash. It's dollars that are reallocated back into our highway operations fund in order to purchase new equipment in the future. So that $715,000 is a good thing that we use it to purchase equipment. Moving down to the total, our depreciation in 2018 was $849,900.02, which was a $1,400 increase from the year before. So we're right on track with that. Then there's other things that we depreciate as we move on to the bottom part of page 18. We depreciate our shop. We depreciate chairs. We depreciate drapes. We depreciate everything. Chairs gets depreciated, and sometimes that gets to be pretty confusing. We're looking to clean that book up for next year so that we're not depreciating stuff that we feel is just a one-time purchase. But next year's financial report will be a lot cleaner. Page 19, we're looking at our pit and quarry operations for 2018. This is the cost for us to have pit and quarry related type items. Sand pit, I know we've talked about the teal pit for some time. There's expenses of having a teal pit. We lease it once a month for $750. We have to have our scales inspected, of which at the teal pit we don't inspect that one anymore. There's a slow transition that we're working on with the transfer. Then there's the fringe benefits of the labor that they charge to the pit. I know that if our crews go and screen sand for our winter sand operations, then them 2 employees that work in that pit are charging their time to pit and quarries. We recover them costs by the sale of our salt sand to ourselves on the county, and also the sale of our sand to the townships and municipalities that hire us and pay for it. So we set a rate on our sand each year to recover our pit and quarry operations. 2019, we're making a little bit of a change where a lot of the teal pit stuff's getting transferred into bituminous operations, which is on the next page. Page 20 is just the costs of purchasing asphalt, and then how we recover the costs of that asphalt by selling it to ourselves, the state, the towns, and municipalities. Overall, we cost pool it, and then we have to recover by setting the rate of asphalt price. So the rate of asphalt price typically is driven by the market, whether it's Northeast Asphalt, American, MCC, or whomever we may purchase it from. They give us a general price per ton on different mix designs, and then we try to come up with one that's going to break us even or gain us a slight profit for the year. And for 2018, we had a gain of $54,428,000 on over recoveries in our bituminous operations. So that's why we're transferring some of the teal pit lease fees to bituminous, because we're currently purchasing sand, whether it be from Shawano County Highway Department for our Larrabee shop, or we're purchasing it now from Folks, which is almost like a better concrete grade sand. It doesn't get so mucky in your boxes and get muddy when it gets wet. So page 21 then is a fringe benefit analysis. It's a breakdown of the fringe benefits to have employees. With that, you can see everything. It's from Social Security, retirement, health insurance, life insurance, workers' comp, unemployment compensation, longevity. One thing that I kind of have to bring up in here is where it says safety shoes and supplies. Well, we don't buy $14,815 worth of safety shoes for our employees. What's also located in there is if an employee is assigned to go to the Larrabee shop way up by Clintonville, and then certain days we want them to report to a different facility. Well, they get paid the difference in mileage from their home to a different facility. So them costs are also located in safety shoes and supplies. Page 22 is field small tools account. Small tools are anything from shovels to buckets to stuff that the state doesn't recognize that they want to put a flat rate on it for us to charge out. It's just costs that we have that we have to pay for it some way, so we track it through small tools. In 2018, we over-recovered on our small tools at $73,173. The total field labor, including fringe benefits to have employees, is then tallied at the bottom of these multiple charts to say it's at $3.991 million. Small tools, then we can go ahead and cost pool the dollars, set a rate, and then put that percentage on our invoices and bills to ourselves as the state and municipalities if we choose to do so, and then we recover our small tools costs. So we really got to watch that we don't go and buy a lot of survey equipment in 1 year, which we did 2 years ago. We just can't continually do that year after year after year, only because that's a percentage that tacks onto everyone's bill and somehow they're all paying for it. Our customers are all helping pay for that. Page 23, an inventory of our land and improvements, 2018. In 2019, it'll change with our new highway facility, of course. Page 24, inventory of our improvements other than buildings. It's anything from fences to truck scales, windows, roof repairs. We in 2018 we repaired we put new roofs on the two salt sheds in the Helvetia shop. So that was an increased expense. I think we spent about $26,000 in that. Got a good quality job out of it. Page 25 is an inventory of what's at our buildings, not necessarily all the FF&E inside, future furniture, fixtures, and equipment. It's more of the big picture things, but it's stuff that has to be allocated and then depreciated. It computes a book value then on page 27 of $393,000. Moving on to page number 28. This is an inventory of our machinery and equipment. So if you inventoried every single piece that we have that has a bumper number on it that we can charge out, essentially it moves us all the way to page 37, which it's anything from plow trucks to the paver to graders, bulldozers.
I'm sorry, I'm one ahead of you, I believe.
Okay.
I apologize.
So, yep. Page 37 then is a compilation of all of our inventory, machinery, and equipment. Some of the numbers that you've seen before are then reflected in this chart, such as the $715,000. That's also reflected in what we depreciated on all of this stuff, all of our equipment. And then we add in a few more things, such as radios, bulk storage equipment, shop equipment, and our depreciation is $756,000. And that excludes the buildings, which are depreciated on a different schedule. In 2017, we had a depreciation of $727,000. 2018, it was an increase. Depreciation only increases when you have newer equipment. So in a roundabout way, it's a good thing, although it's costly. It's costly up front to purchase it. Page 38, machinery and equipment that we purchased in 2018. Here's a breakdown of all of it. One of them is, that I'll just call out, unit number 831, which is a self-propelled broom. We were allowed to we didn't purchase that out of our equipment budget. We purchased that out of our performance-based maintenance budget, which is a whole nother program that the state has with the counties. So Unit 831 actually did not get purchased out of this. It was charged to performance-based maintenance. All right. Page 39 is machinery and equipment that we traded in. We look at our original costs, what's depreciated over time, and then we try to make money on it, so to speak. We had a significant trade-in last year in that we traded in our 2 articulated scrapers, which are the big belly pan scrapers, and we got more for them than we ever anticipated. So see where they both depreciated out at 0. Supposedly their value is supposed to be that as well, but we had a good buyer down at the Foxconn area that wanted to pay for them, so we made $113,000 in addition. So that was a good thing. Page 40 was the machinery and equipment that either was too broke, rotten, or junked in order to sell or trade in, and we had to discard it, so we have to essentially write these dollars off. We wrote off $10,738 worth of equipment that was just beyond its useful life. The Ford truck was a big hit on that one. I know that the frame, I think it was a 1982 truck that the frame cracked and broke, and we over time stuck money into it, so it increased its value and it didn't all the way depreciate out. We had to get rid of it. So we actually had a good year on what we discarded. 2018, we also sell our equipment. Most of it goes on to WisconsinSurplus.com, and we try to take a gain on of it. Sometimes you take a loss, but overall we had a gain of $20,997,000 on what we had sold. The aerial truck, which was our boom truck, that one we had a pretty good gain on. Next, I'm moving on to page 41. It's an analysis of our inventory of all of the supplies and materials that we need to have on hand in order to, spot repairs for shouldering roads, culvert inventory, signposts for fixing stuff that got broke. We have to inventory all of that, and then sometimes we sell it to our customers as well. So that's what page 42 is. We have to inventory it at the end of the year. Our book inventory was $1.33 million. Our adjustment was $275,000. That's real critical. Why did we have to adjust the $275,000? It's because at the very end of the year, our physical inventory has to match our book inventory, and so there's adjustments in there. And we had a significant one this year, so that's something we can improve on. It comes right down to the boots on the ground, that guy that's charging out his gravel, the guy that's charging out the culvert pipe, somewhere in there the inventory wasn't right on, so we have to adjust for it. Page 43 is work that we do primarily for the state. There's 4 different breakdowns on it. A lot of it where it says balance due, that's just because invoices and stuff that got processed in December got sent to the state, and they just didn't reimburse us in time for the January 1st of the year, so sometimes there's dollars due. Doesn't make it a bad thing, it just takes a month for us to process bills. Overall, way at the bottom, the performance-based maintenance, I guess, is one thing I like to call out because it's where the county takes off its maintenance hat and puts on its contractor's hat, and we get treated just like a contractor, where we submit a bid to the state, and then they compare us to a bid from a private contractor. And basically our cost is what we bill them, but they pay us based off of the bid. So if we're efficient, we do a good job, they pay us for what we bid on versus the cost. It's a program that started back in 2010 that was only supposed to last for 3 years, but it's still moving on today, and that the road builders were comparing the counties to make sure that we weren't taking their work or they weren't taking our work. So just try to do an apples to apples comparison, but the state's still doing it, and they're even looking at doing it here again in 2019. Page 44 is our accounts receivable from our townships and municipalities, our cities. This is a big part of our budget, because I don't have enough in my county budget to keep 70 employees on board unless I had work from towns and municipalities. And they are keeping our iron moving. They're the reason why we are able to stay afloat and not sink financially, because they hire us for so much work. things that we have to take into consideration though is if they aren't spending enough money with us during the summer, and I'm keeping them on board for snow plowing, and let's just say this last year, snow plowing, they kept one of my employees busy for 40 days, for example. Well, I have an employee on my staff to service that township for the winter, and when summer rolls around, they just can't be sitting on my county budget. I can't afford it. They need to help us out with summer work as well. And so we're doing an evaluation of where we want our future service agreements to read. But right now, we're doing good with our municipalities. Accounts receivable from other county departments is on page 45. It's a breakdown of our expenditures and receipts. We want to essentially, I know that the Parks Department, Sheriff's Department, a lot of county departments right now are using our services a lot, and we really appreciate it because it helps keep some of our employees off of our own budget, which helps us for borrowing extra money for snow plowing, which has bit us in the butt. So, school districts, you'll notice at the bottom, the New London School District was pretty high compared to everyone else. It's because it's one of the only school districts that purchased diesel fuel from us. So most of this is for purchasing diesel fuel. We greatly appreciate that. I guess I kind of made some more notes outside of the booklet. It was, our department had 3 things that didn't come up on my radar at the beginning of the year. First thing was Snowstorm Evelyn. The second one was the Town of Caledonia's Kahneman Road project. And the third one is we received extra invoices for the Division Street in 2019 that I should have charged back to 2018, but the concrete contractor gave us the invoice and we already closed out 2018. So with that, Division Street still was right on budget of $720,000. It's just that we had to now take it away from this year's projects, of which Heidi just helped us with the $500,000. Outside of that, I would say in 2018, I'm really thinking that in 2006 we were budgeting $4 million for road projects. In 2019, we're budgeting $4 million for road projects. Well, along the way, we had increase in material prices, increase in labor, increase in all this stuff. So we're down to 5-6 miles of roads that we're replacing when we should be at 15. And we're not alone in that boat. A lot of counties are in the same boat. Right now, we're on track to replace 1 mile of road in our county once every 80 years, and they typically don't last that long. So that's my financial report, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Mr. Nygaard?
Yeah, on page 11, there's a comment about the county being reimbursed by the state on a square foot basis. I'm just curious what that amounts to. I'm just wondering.
Okay, so in the value where it says, I guess, 3/4 of the, let me go back up. 1/3 of the way down, it says $463,628. Yeah, about 1/3 of the way down on that page, on page 11. 400, yeah, right there. So right there, $463,000 was our costs, and then the revenue that the state helped us reimburse was the $428,000.
Interesting.
And that's all based off of our square footage of our buildings. They give us money in our transportation services fund to recover that cost of having buildings and grounds.
Next question, what is the square footage of our new facility when that's done? How much of that square footage would be applicable?
It's going to be 13 acres. So I don't know the square footage. Just our building alone is 99,000 square feet. So in 2019, we're going to take an astronomically huge kick in the pants for the amount of the square footage that it costs for us to have it, and then what the state is going to reimburse us for. There's something that we have to really plan for in 2019 to include now we're depreciating a $24 million facility. How do we recover them costs? The state's not going to do it.
No.
I hope that kind of helped.
Yeah, it did. Thank you. No,
That's okay, another question?
I think you already had 2.
okay.
Next, anybody else? Oh, sorry. Supervisor Boyer.
I just want to know, where do I get one of those automatic brooms for my house?
Automatic brooms for your house, for sweeping the roadway, or what are you talking about?
I think that would come in handy. But I think you did a really good job, very transparent and
They have to be, because the last thing I'm gonna do is try to hide something, because you're the ones to help me. So,
Any other questions for Casey? Okay, thank you very much, Casey. Now on to the next one.
very good. So the new highway facility project is chugging along, and it's doing well. I think I'd like just to start off with the drone photo, which is already a week outdated. The drone video is something I like showing to this group here, because it lets me show you our progress. So the video is probably 5 minutes long or so. Notice the one section of building that's not enclosed in this photo. Right now, it's all enclosed. Even the roof is on that other section, and they're looking at moving the crane away. The project progress is progressing well. Again, financially and constructability wise, we're on our time limits. Our crews are eager for the land to dry out so that we can get in there and regrade the rest of the property. Folks then would follow us up with their geotextile fabric and their stone, so that it's all firm, but right now it's pretty wet. Every Monday morning, all of the subcontractors meet to ensure things such as, like little things right now, that the curb box subcontractor makes the right size porch for the HVAC unit to sit on, and then the roofer has to be in there to make sure that everything's sealed up tight. Little things like that are ongoing daily with the subcontractors, and a lot of it gets hashed out on our Monday morning meetings. The windows will begin installation next week. The inspections are taking place for the Spancrete. All of them brown, the exterior walls are all made out of precast concrete, and there was 275 of them, of which yesterday I was made aware that there's 6 of them that just need to be inspected to make sure that they're good. I don't know what they were, hairline crack or a chip on the bottom or something, but out of 275 of them that got set, 6 of them are re-inspected for make sure that they're perfect. That's a big thing. Inspections are taking place right down to is that weld on the roof meeting the OSHA code, or the Department of Safety and Public Professional Services codes. The gas mains are getting installed here this week. I seen the flaggers putting out their locates along Highway A, and the gas main will end up getting installed later this week. The sprinkler systems are being installed. It's considered a dry system, so even though we have sprinkler heads above us, the system is dry. As soon as a fire is indicated, it senses in the sprinkler head, and then boom, the system powers up, and then it loads all of our pipes full of water and starts trying to help put out the fire. But I was made aware that it's a dry system. Doesn't make sense to me, but it is. Right now, the punch lists are being created by the architecture from Bray, because Bray not only designed it, but they also have an employee on board to create punch list items for subcontractors that are moving out. And then he gives that punch list to the prime contractor from Myron, and then that subcontractor comes back in and fixes what needs to be punch list. There's a lot of little things like figuring out an 8-inch column might be a 1/4 inch off from where the 8-inch block needs to go, so we're making decisions on how to make that wall look straight, even though a column might be a 1/4 inch off, and how to make it all blend in so that no one notices, even though I'm telling you about little things like that. It's basically, this building was constructed on a BIM model, B-I-M. It stands for where every single utility that runs together finds a conflict, and it pops up on a computer-generated computer, and then boom, we have to address where them 2 items conflict. And right now, there's not very many of them according to the size of this project and what there could be. However, we do have little things. Right now, there's a lot of things out there that are pre-staged, whether it's on site or in a subcontractor's building for the construction of the facility, like brine tanks. Right now, the brine tanks are sitting in our sand shed, ready to go in the main building. The HVAC units and all that now are up on the roofs, so there's really no need for a crane after this next week. So I imagine Myron will haul their crane away next week because all of the stuff on the roof is up there. The cold storage building way on the north side of this picture, way up on top by the pond, the roof is going to start getting installed next week, so that'll move along. I can't forecast a whole lot of bad things between now and it getting drier, but man, did they plug away through the winter months. The only other picture that I would have, if you have it, is the progress report, and that would have been sent. It would be on our highway department. Regardless, you all got it. It tells the same story that I just told you about the progress on what's been completed. That one, yep. Mr. Kippen.
I don't know if you can go back quickly, but could you just review quickly what each building is out there? I know you explained this one time, but I have people asking me, and I said, well, I don't know.
All right. So on site, I'll just start with the exterior buildings. This is the county's salt building. This is the county's sand building, where we'll store our sand. And right in between it is an open space. That's where the state's going to put their salt shed. They're going to bid that out in July. They didn't want to do it with our project. They wanted to hold their own letting, their own contract, and everything. So with that, they're going to bid that out in July. We don't like it, but that's what they wanted to do. This is the cold storage building that houses all of our construction barrels, tar, equipment that we wouldn't use every single day, but it puts a roof over its head. Back here is our big detention pond that collects all of our rainwater, and then it's supposed to drop the sediment and filter it before it goes back into the wetlands, which is that back in there. Right here is, as soon as next week, this is where the fuel island is going to go. If you come in off of Highway A and you're a big dump truck, you're going to use this entrance for the majority of the time. If you're going to come visit us for administrative reasons or to come to work, you're going to come in the south entrance, which would be this entrance right in here. And then you'd end up parking right in this spot. You can get out of your car, and if you're an employee, you're going to walk into this entrance, which is the break room, wait for your morning orders for the supervisors. If you're in administrative staff, you're going to walk in these doors, and then this would be my office and Chris's office, engineering specialist, highway operations, building supervisor manager, operations, big archive room. This is the administrative area. This is the break room. This is the mechanics bays. There's 10 of them. Way on this west side is the metal fabrication shop where we rebuild our own trucks right now. And if we have a long-term breakdown, that truck can sit in a bay for a long time based on how long, whatever needs to get fixed. And we also have additional bays in that fabrication shop for short-term welding fixes. This is the big building where all of our equipment's going to get stored now, so it's not sitting outside. It's sized to meet our requirements based off of the space needs. That's a wetland we can't disturb. That's a wetland we can't disturb. Any other questions?
No, thank you.
Yep. So you all got the project progress report. It's sent to us monthly, and there's a new lady that's creating it for us at Myron. The other one's on to another Myron type project. Page 3 is a breakdown of big pictures, executive stuff. Action items would be our next page. The action items is once in a while we get to a soil or a situation that we have to make a decision. Do we want to beef it up? Do we want to go with 12 inches? 9 times out of 10, we're looking at heavy construction traffic. And so we've always been waging a little bit more towards increasing the thickness of the gravel if necessary. We set a project contingency amount of $1 million. Well, when bids came in, we only added to that project contingency. We're still well above $1 million for our project contingencies. I don't think we're gonna hit $1 million, and that'll be an additional, we don't have to borrow that much, or I don't know what we do with it, but with that, maybe we can save it for future maintenance, and I don't know. But we'll figure that out with Heidi and her crew. Inside, it is plugging away. Yesterday I got a tour of it, and inside of the administrative offices, all of the metal wall studs are being erected. I can actually walk into my space, the highway committee room. It's pretty neat to see where the bathrooms are and whatnot. So on June 20th, or whenever the UW extension tour is, we'll have to decide how in-depth we want to get. Do we want to do a bus ride, or do we want to walk inside? I'll work with UW on that. It's all based on field conditions as well.
You're gonna have to fight Chad.
All right, and we'll fight time. Other than that, it's pretty much all pictures from there on out.
Any final questions for Mr. Beiersdorf on that? No, I guess not. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Casey. We'll take a short 10-minute break before we get our guests up here today. Okay, if we could all take our seats and regroup.
Yeah, there's so many of
Okay. Well, today we've got a special guest. Guests, I should say. We try to do this a couple times a year, sometimes 3 times a year. And we got Mr. Kyle Christensen with us. And many of you know him, heard him. He serves the WCA as the Director of Government Affairs, and where he manages the association's lobbyists and leads lobbying efforts in both Madison and Washington, D.C. And he's just a good friend of Waupaca County. He's a good friend of many, many counties, and he's working for us in the capital as hard as he can for the benefits of our counties. He brought along a gentleman I don't know very well, Mr. Dale Knapp. You'll introduce Dale later. And Mr. O'Connell decided he was going to Washington, D.C. and not come to Waupaca. I wonder why. But anyhow, we've got a good one, and Kyle Christensen, welcome aboard, and thanks for being here, Kyle.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for the invite. We always appreciate being invited to county board meetings. So often, the only kind of interaction that a lot of our staff has with county officials is at our annual conference or at our legislative exchange in February in Madison. And those are times that are busy for everybody, and it's difficult to have kind of those one-on-one conversations. So we always appreciate the invites to county board meetings or committee meetings. Waupaca County's always been great about inviting us in, so we appreciate that, Mr. Chair and members of the body. With me today, we do have Dale Knapp, who's in the back. Dale, can you wave your hand? Dale is our new research director. We hired Dale almost a year ago from the Wisconsin Taxpayers Alliance. Dale was their research director for almost 20 years. And what we've done is we've created a new research division, Forward Analytics. And after I give kind of a brief legislative update today, what we had hoped was that Dale will come up here and kind of walk you through our new research division and show you some of the tools that Dale has developed that will be hopefully useful to not only members of the county board, but also your county staff. So we're trying to provide new resources, new information, new data to help guide the decisions that county boards, like here in Waupaca County, are asked to make on a daily basis. So once I get done kind of rambling about Madison, we'll call Dale up. One of the things I was asked to talk about was just kind of the state of politics in Madison. and I'm pleased to announce that everything's great and everybody in Madison is getting along. Are they not? No, you're right, they're not. We have a really new dynamic in Madison. I think everybody's aware of the shift, right? We had November elections where really the big change was Scott Walker was not reelected, Tony Evers was elected, yet we still have large, significant Republican majorities in the state legislature. In fact, we have the largest majorities in the legislature since 1957. So Republicans still have their big blocks in the legislature, but they no longer have a governor of the same party in the east wing of the state capitol. And I think that kind of sets the stage for a lot of what we've seen really since November, in that for the first time in 10 years, we don't have one-party control in Madison. For 8 years, of course, we had Republicans and Governor Walker. We all remember that. But most people forget that the 2 years before Governor Walker, the Democrats actually had one-party control. My point with this is that unless you're a legislator that's been in Madison for over 10 years, you've never experienced this, right? This is a whole new dynamic. If you were a Democrat over the last 8 years, you really couldn't get much done, right? You could throw out bills and you could stand up and talk during committee hearings, but the Republicans ran the agenda. If you were a Republican over the 8 years, there's pretty much nothing you couldn't do, right? Because you could ram things through the legislature, and Governor Walker typically signed Republican-led bills. So a very new dynamic. I think that's leading to some of the rhetoric and what some would categorize as dysfunction going on in Madison right now, right? After every election, or a change in election, I think what you usually expect to see is kind of a honeymoon period, right? So Tony Evers was elected in early November, and what we expected, and I think most people that work in politics in Madison expected, was you were going to have a 2 or 3 month honeymoon period where the legislature and the governor were going to talk, and they were going to say, okay, we don't agree on 90% of things, but on this 10%, maybe we could work together. To the surprise of all of us, that's not what happened. I think what you'll remember is in November, what the legislature did was they called an extraordinary session. And during that extraordinary session, they did a number of things, including confirming about 80 plus appointments that hadn't been filled, and also really scaled back the power of the governor. You can argue about whether that scaling back was appropriate or not, but clearly Governor Evers didn't take kindly to that, right? Was just elected by millions of Wisconsin voters. Now the legislature comes and essentially takes back authority that Governor Walker had. So that really set the stage, I think, for where we are today, which quite simply is the legislature and the governor not talking at all. There was one meeting early on between the governor and legislative leaders. There was a brief meeting within the last 7 days between the governor and legislative leaders, but the governor did not consult the legislature in the development of his budget. So that's created kind of this friction point, and anybody that's been following this has seen kind of the rhetoric that's going on. So what Governor Evers has done, about a month and a half ago, he introduced his 2-year spending plan, his state budget. That is the first thing that any new governor has to do, right? You get elected, you're building your cabinet, you're building your staff, and then you have to put together a budget. So Governor Evers did that. And I think for the folks that followed the governor on the campaign trail, and the folks that listened to the governor after he was elected, his budget really shouldn't have been much of a surprise, right? I mean, the governor, when he was running for re-election, or running for election, talked about, my priorities are really 3 things, right? I want health care, I want to do Medicaid expansion, cover more people under Medicaid. We're one of about 14 states that hasn't accepted the federal Medicaid expansion. I want to fix our infrastructure, so have a long-term fix for funding our roads. And then finally, I want to put more money in schools, right? I mean, the guy was the former head of the Department of Public Instruction. He cares about K-12 education. And if you look at his budget, it's what he does, right? The governor calls for Medicaid expansion. So that would essentially cover about 80,000 more people in the state that would qualify for Medicaid. It also generates about $400 million for the state. The governor calls for $1.6 billion in additional funding for K-12 education. Not a surprise, it's basically what he asked for as superintendent of DPI. And then the governor calls for roughly $600 million in new revenues for transportation. Right, so none of this should be a surprise, yet if you listen to the legislature, what's the legislature been talking about? The legislature says, we're gonna do what with Tony Evers' budget? We're gonna throw it away. Right, we're gonna throw away Tony Evers' budget, and we're going to do our own budget. I think that's the most misunderstood component of what's happening in Madison right now, is where the legislature has said, Tony Evers' budget is too radical for us, it's too far out there, it spends too much money, it does Medicaid expansion, which we said if he does Medicaid expansion, we're not starting from his budget. They're gonna throw that, they're gonna do their own budget. So one of the questions that I get repeatedly is, okay, you guys have summarized Tony Evers' budget, 1,300 pages. When are we going to see the Republicans' budget? Do you have a copy? That's something you can share with us? And originally when I got that question, I kind of laughed, but then realized that the media hasn't done a very good job of explaining what the legislature means when they say they're going to do their own budget. The legislature is not going to come and introduce their own budget that's 1,200 pages long. Okay, that's not happening. We're not going to have two competing budgets. What the legislature is going to do is they're going to work from what's called base budget. And this is nothing but inside Madison baseball, right? Most people don't understand it. It doesn't really matter. But typically, here's how the process works. The governor proposes a budget. That budget then goes to the state's budget writing committee, the Joint Committee on Finance. And the Finance Committee goes through that budget piece by piece by piece. Okay, so for example, one day in finance, they're going to take up the county transportation aids. The governor proposes a 10% increase in transportation aids. So what the nonpartisan Legislative Fiscal Bureau does is they're going to have a paper for the legislature, and they're going to say, okay, here's the county transportation aid program. And then historically what they've done is they've said, okay, the governor is proposing a 10% increase, and then they lay out options for the legislature. They say option 1, accept what the governor does. Option 2, cut the aids by 5%. Option 3, increase the aids by 10%. Option 4, option 5, whatever they may be. That's typically how it works. When the Republicans say that they're going to do their own budget or not work off of Governor Evers' budget, all that means is that that starting point, on the day that they talk about county transportation aids, their starting point is not going to be Governor Evers proposed a 10% increase. What are you going to do with that? The starting point is going to be, under the current budget, counties receive $107 million in transportation aids. What do you want to do? Then again, the Fiscal Bureau will lay out options. The first option that the Fiscal Bureau is going to say is Governor Evers proposed X. Okay, so I think there's some concern amongst folks that, especially the things that we really like in Governor Evers' budget, that they're never going to be talked about because the legislature is doing their own thing. And I'm here to tell you, I don't think that's going to be the case. I think every step of the way, the legislature is going to say, okay, here's what the current budget funds this program at. And then option 1 is going to be, here's what the governor proposed. Right? So I think people are a little bit worked up over kind of these two competing budgets, when at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. It's simply an inside baseball thing that normal people don't care about. So process kind of where we're at right now. The Finance Committee is currently going around the state doing their road show, which is where they go around the state, a few hundred people show up to different venues and talk about the state budget. And the Finance Committee doesn't respond, they just listen. And you get to stand in line for 4 hours, and you speak for 2.5 minutes. That's where we are now. The Finance Committee is doing 4 of these. They've now completed 3. There's one more, I believe, next week in Green Bay. That'll be the 4th and final one. The Finance Committee has also brought in agency secretaries. And essentially what they do is they bring the secretaries and they ask them questions. Well, your budget includes this, why does it do that? Why doesn't your budget include A, but it also includes Y? They've done that as well. So what we're leading up to is really the Finance Committee starting to delve into the budget. So probably the 2nd week of May, what we're going to see is the Finance Committee We'll actually sit down and start going through this budget piece by piece by piece by piece by piece. That's really where the rubber meets the road, and that's where the changes start happening, right? That's where you're going to have members of our staff and other lobbyists in Madison living in the Capitol 12 to 14 hours a day, trying to make sure that any changes we want to see to the budget ultimately are adopted by the Finance Committee. You know, so often we're asked, are we ever going to have a state budget? It doesn't seem like these guys can agree on anything. Governor Evers has laid out his priorities, and the legislature has said basically no, right? The governor cares about Medicaid expansion. The legislature says there's no way in heck we're doing Medicaid expansion. So there's a lot of questions about how we ever going to have agreement. I think from our perspective, really, there's two things that could happen here. I fundamentally believe the legislature is going to pass a budget in early to mid-June, right? That's what they're going to do. The Republican Assembly and the Republican Senate is going to pass their budget. It's probably going to include less than 10% of what Tony Evers proposed, right? That's just what it's going to be. And I don't think Governor Evers will really be consulted along the way either. They're going to pass the budget, and they're going to send it to the governor. From there, the governor really has a couple of options. And I think how he acts on those options depends on how long this process drags out. The governor could sign it in its entirety, which he will not do. The governor could partially veto it or line item veto it, right? Where you can just strike certain provisions of the state budget. The governor has one of the strongest partial veto pens in the country. So there's a lot of different things he can do with that line item veto authority. I think that's a possibility. Or the third, and a possibility that I don't think we've ever seen, is the governor could veto the whole thing. The governor could veto the entire budget and send it back. And I think the rationale for that would be pretty simple, right? I proposed a budget as the chief executive of the state. You basically publicly acknowledged you took my budget and you threw it in the garbage. You now passed a budget and sent me a budget that only includes 10% or less of what I asked for? No. I'm going to veto the entire thing and send it back to you. I think that probably gives the governor a little bit of leverage, right? But that's where I think you could have a budget that is either done relatively quickly, right? Where the legislature is going to send him a budget in mid-June. He may partially veto 70% of it. And if he does that, I think we're done. We probably have a budget even earlier this time than we did 2 years ago when Republicans controlled everything. Or he could veto the whole thing, and then I think you're looking at a budget that either doesn't happen, ever, or that maybe runs into deer hunting season or later, right? So kind of two very extremes. I don't see us having a budget that lasts until August, because I don't think anything changes in August, right? It's either going to be really, really late, or it's going to be roughly on time, I think. We don't know, and part of the reason we don't know is because none of that compromising or negotiations are happening yet. So I think if you look at Governor Evers' budget, there are provisions of that budget, Medicaid expansion, driver's licenses for undocumented workers, marijuana legalization or decriminalization, medical marijuana. Those three things where if you went to the Capitol right now and talked to the legislative leadership, they would tell you those are never, ever going to happen. Ever. And I think they truly believe that. But if you want to have a budget and the governor stays firm, at some point there's going to have to be compromise that occurs, right? There's going to have to be some give and take. And that's where I think people need to be cautious that regardless of what the rhetoric is today, regardless of how things look today, some things look like they're a slam dunk, they're going to happen, other things look like there's no way they could ever happen. I think you need to be cautious because if we get to November and the public kind of has a revolt and says, look, you guys are no different than Washington, D.C. You're dysfunctional. And the governor and legislature decide, okay, we need to figure this out. That's where the compromises are going to occur. I think that's where the items that today look like they're non-starters could potentially be enacted into law. So a lot of unknowns. I think from the WCA perspective, what we're trying to do is make sure that all our bases are covered. We really have three primary priorities for this budget. The first is we would like to find a long-term solution to transportation funding. We think the governor takes, many, many steps towards that in his budget. Is it perfect? No. Are there changes we'd like to see? Yes. But we significantly reduced borrowing in the governor's transportation budget, while also generating new revenue that I think we all agree we need for infrastructure. So that's one of our priorities. Another priority is additional funding for child welfare. I see Chuck in the back, who's very well aware, and I'm sure any members of your Human Services Committee are well aware of the child welfare crisis the state is in the middle of. We have made the biggest ask that WC has ever made. We're asking for $60 million in this budget for child welfare. The governor included $30 million over the biennium. We're asking for 60. So that's a priority of ours. And then finally, juvenile corrections. We think there needs to be additional funding for juvenile corrections. There is a proposal in the governor's budget to return 17-year-old offenders to juvenile jurisdiction. You may recall in the 1990s, Wisconsin, along with a number of other states, took 17-year-olds and we decided we were going to treat them like adults in the criminal justice system. Since that time, basically all but a handful of states have returned 17-year-olds back to the juvenile system. Wisconsin has not. The governor's budget would do that. So really that's our focus at this time. It's juvenile corrections, child welfare funding, and transportation. Now, of course, there's another 100 items that we'll be lobbying on throughout the budget, but those are kind of the big pieces and the pieces where we think we can gain some traction right now. I think there is a concern on our part, and I think it's shared by other entities, that in the event you don't have a budget by July 1st, we're not like Washington, D.C. Washington, D.C., if they don't have a budget by the start of their new fiscal year, they shut down, right? So if you had a vacation plan to a national park or national forest, you're not getting in, and they shut down. In Wisconsin, we don't do that. We just continue off the current appropriation schedule. So in some ways, that's good, but in other ways, it's really a challenge, right? If we think that we need $60 million for child welfare, we are in no way getting those dollars if we don't have a budget. We're not going to get the 10% increase in transportation aids if we don't have a budget. Schools are not going to get additional investment, $600, $700, $800 million, whatever it may be, without a budget. So that's, I think, one of our major concerns right now, is that politics, it appears, is getting in the way of some sound public policy that needs to get done. So again, I think it's too early to tell exactly where this is going. We're all guessing, right? We're all kind of looking at our crystal ball and just making educated, informed guesses. But nobody really knows when this is going to break. And again, I don't think it breaks until the two sides come together and start talking. And that, for all intents and purposes, hasn't happened yet. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions that anybody may have regarding kind of what's happening in Madison, other bills that are going on, other items in the state budget that you might have questions on.
Mr. Fleece?
That youth prison that they're talking about coming to the New London area, is that a done deal, or is that just in the talking stage?
It's not a done deal. Just yesterday, a group of Outagamie County legislators, you're talking about the new facility in Outagamie
Yes.
County, correct? A group of Outagamie legislators, both Republicans and Democrats, sent a letter to the state and Department of Corrections and said, hold on here. We want to make sure there's buy-in from not only the municipality but also the county before this occurs. So it's not a done deal. I think this is another kind of legal gray area, right? Where I think the Department of Corrections and the governor think that they have the authority to place this largely wherever they want to place it. And I think the legislature believes, no, without our permission, you're not placing it here. So it is not a done deal. Like many other things, this could be litigated. But I think at this point, we're in more of the kind of information gathering stage, where I think more than anything what the municipality and the county want at this time is just more information. How big of a facility are we talking about? Where exactly is it going to be located? What's it going to look like? How many kids are we going to have? Is the state going to make sure that this is a safe facility that's not costing the county money? That's kind of the stage we're in. but it has not been a welcome reception by either Outagamie, where one facility is proposed, or in the Milwaukee proposed location. There was a similar reaction there as well. So kind of a wait and see there.
Highway 15, is the money gonna stay there, or is that gonna be taken out again?
Yeah, that's a great question too. Is and that's something I should have mentioned with transportation. When I talk about the budget in Wisconsin, if we don't have a budget, we just continue on the current appropriation schedule, right? The only exception to that is really with transportation, where we have bonded dollars. We have dollars that we borrow every 2-year cycle for transportation projects. In the event that we don't have a budget by July 1, all the borrowing that essentially was authorized in the prior biennium, that goes away. Okay, so that's the one place where transportation's hurt more than other entities. Other entities don't essentially lose money, right? In transportation, you would have projects that need additional bonding authority to be completed that aren't going to have that. So it'll be interesting to see how the legislature kind of goes through this. Historically, what the legislature has done is they haven't really delved into a project-by-project basis. Okay, they've said we're going to allocate $300 million for the majors program, we're going to allocate $200 million for state highway rehab, and this much for, that's how they've typically done it, kind of from 30,000 feet, right? Probably how, this body acts. What there's some talk of is that maybe the legislature would delve down even further and start picking projects like you said. Well, yeah, we're going to put $200 million into the state highway rehab program, but rather than this project, we're going to do that project. Rather than that project, we're going to do this project. That's, again, kind of the unknown right now. So historically, the legislature hasn't really done that. There's been a process at DOT and other committees that have kind of prioritized projects, but it is a possibility that the legislature could decide that they're going to themselves dictate and enumerate individual projects.
Mr. Rourke, did you have a question?
Just a follow-up on Highway 15. What's the county's position on Highway 15 from Appleton to New London?
So the counties association ourselves, we don't have a position on individual projects. And we've just long not done that, right? We have positions on additional investment in programs like the majors program or the highway rehab program, which your project will fall under. But we don't take positions on specific projects simply because we're kind of picking against each other, right? Every county in the state has state highway projects they want to see done. So it'd be difficult for the association to weigh in on specific projects. So from the broad scale, very supportive. We want to make sure you have the resources to get the projects that you need done, but we're not going to weigh in on specific projects, if that makes sense.
Thank you. Other questions? I guess not.
Okay. Well, then I will again introduce Dale Knapp. Dale is our new Director of Research and Analytics. One of the things that we are constantly trying to do at the Counties Association is provide additional, essentially, tools for county officials. And in recent years, we've tried to kind of eliminate some barriers to education. You may recall a few years ago, as part of your dues, you would have to essentially pay for additional copies of the WCA magazine, right? And some counties would say, oh, we're going to buy 10 so that everybody can have them. Other counties would say, we're not doing any of that. Today, as part of your dues, everybody in this group should be getting the WCA magazine. We also do educational seminars at Stevens Point. Those happen about every other month. We used to charge for those. 2 years ago, we said, we're not going to charge for those anymore. We want to eliminate barriers to education to make you as informed as you can possibly be. So we've done those things, but now what we're trying to do is take that next transition and develop really strong data analytical tools that you can use, that your department heads can use to understand not only where you're at as a county, and the challenges you're facing today, but what does it look like 10 or 20 years from now, right? Unless you know what you're going to look like 10 years from now, how do you make decisions today, for the long term? So one of the things Dale has developed, and hopefully you all recently seen, was the Green Book. Does everybody remember that? The Green Book of County Facts that everybody got? Yeah. That was Dale's creation. But one of the things we heard once we did that was, this is great, but if we could get more data for more years, and we could compare ourselves to other counties, that would be helpful. So one of the things Dale's going to do today is walk you through the Forward Analytics website, which is what we branded our new research arm, and then talk about kind of the new advancements in the Green Book. So with that, take it away, Dale.
I'm going to go over here so I can maneuver the website. So my name's Dale Knapp. I spent 18 years with the Wisconsin Taxpayers Alliance, 18 great years working with Todd Berry. When he retired a little over a year ago, the Taxpayers Alliance merged with the Public Policy Forum out of Milwaukee. And at that time, Mark O'Connell came to me with this idea of heading up a new research arm for the counties, which was very intriguing. And so last May, I joined the Counties Association and have spent, you're a little closer.
Sorry.
Okay. And I've spent, the last 10, 11 months working on forward analytics and this debut. So let me tell you sort of what we envision forward analytics to be. In addition to helping county officials with data, with information, there's also a bigger research arm. We want to do big research on not only counties but the state, various issues facing the state, to help the people in Madison make better decisions. And so let me briefly just talk about, firstly, about the a report that just came out yesterday. So you're the first ones that we've really had a chance to really talk to about this. It's a report that addresses a long-term problem for the state, and that's its workforce. We're in a labor shortage situation right now throughout the state. And we're thinking, a lot of times we're thinking about these short-term solutions to that problem. We're not thinking long-term. And let me give you just a sense, and it's in the report. You'll all be getting a copy. We're mailing those copies out today, so you'll get a copy of the report. But let me give you a sense of what the labor shortage problem long-term is in the state. Think about the population that's 50 to 64 right now. In 15 years, most of them will be retired. Some will continue working, but most of them are going to be retired. Who's going to replace them? They're going to largely be replaced by the young people that are under 15 right now. So we constantly have this retirement and replacement. In 2000, we had 1.42 young people for every person nearing retirement over 15 years. So we had plenty of young people, and our labor force grew. You know where we're at right now? We're at 0.87. We have less than one person under 15 for every one person that's going to retire over the next 15 years. That's unprecedented. What does that mean? The only way we're going to be able to grow our workforce is through migration, bringing people here from other states. And so this new report looks at that and looks at how we've been doing. And unfortunately, it's very troubling. Wisconsin's migration patterns historically have been, we lose young people. We lose them as they go off to college and as they graduate college. But then we gain back young families. And the gains in young families more than offsets the loss of young people. And the gains in young families is dually important because not only does it add to the workforce, they bring with them children who are the workforce of tomorrow. Between 2010 and 15, the last 5-year period we were able to look at, not only did we lose about 30,000 young people as they graduated college and started their first job, we lost among almost every family aged cohort going forward. So not only are we losing young people, we're not gaining the families that we historically had. Along with those families, historically we brought in about 40,000 kids over the 5-year period. That's down to less than 10,000. So we need to figure out a way to turn that migration problem around, because we don't have enough people here right now to solve our workforce problem in the future. And the migration changes that we document in here show us a major long-term challenge that we need to address. And it's happening in all of the counties, and counties like Waupaca County, rural counties, have an even bigger problem. Not only, statewide we lose about 7% of these young people as they graduate high school and go off to college. A county like Waupaca loses 20%. And again, historically you've gained back in some of the families. You're gaining back about 2%, 3% in the families, if at all. So rural counties are having an even bigger challenge than the more urban counties. And so if you're interested in the county by county numbers, I have those in my office. So on the website, we're going to, when we have these research, you'll get copies of all of the research that we do. In the most recent magazine, there was a companion piece that really just focused on millennials. That's up on the website. Wisconsin is not doing well at all in attracting millennials. It's something we've known to some degree, but this sort of shows the challenge. On the website then, so we'll have this research section. We also have a data section. So right now it's somewhat bare. We're kind of filling it in. So you'll be able to, if you need information on, for example, property values, new construction, jobs by county, poverty, per capita incomes, all of those things, and as we go, we're gonna fill this in. That's all available on the website. But the most exciting part, I think, is the Green Book section. So you can go online and you can get a PDF copy of the Green Book that you all got a copy of, and that's all great. But now we also have, there we go. Yeah, I told them to change that because I don't like things. There we go. We have an interactive version. So if you click on the interactive version, we have the 3 main areas that were in the Green Book: population, various demographic measures, finances, and economy and development. So if you click, for example, to economy and development, let's do it this way. The nice thing that's different from the Green Book is right away it comes up with a summary of all of the measures that are in that section by county. So quickly you can scroll down to Waupaca County and look, and in terms of per capita income, a little bit below average in 2017. Job growth, lagging the state. Unemployment, you're on par. Property values a little bit less. Net new construction about half the state level. So right away you can get a quick look at, okay, where do we stand in terms of all of these measures. The other thing that's going to be nice about this is you have the hard copy of the Green Book, and you're looking for per capita income, for example. Well, you look at that hard copy, I think it had 2016 numbers. We're now in 2019. You'd like the most up-to-date. As newer numbers come out, and in all of these different measures, they come out at different times of the year, but as the new numbers come out, we'll be updating them here. So if you want to get the newest numbers in terms of whatever, this is the place to go. Now you'll be getting another hard copy of the Green Book this year, which will have updated numbers. But again, as things get updated, that'll get out of date. So then you can from there on the top, you can go to the various specific areas. And so you're curious about the job growth number. So if you go to the employment growth, you'll see a couple of things. One, you'll see a quick map, just like the map that we had in the Green Book, sorted by color. So you have the dark counties, the high growth counties, the light counties are low growth. Waupaca County, for 5 years ending 2017, down 1.3%. You have a bar chart over on the right which just sorts all the counties, so you can get a sense of where you're at. The nice thing about this, though, is so we can look at Waupaca County and quickly you can see, well, you're doing better than some counties are the same and worse than others. But you can quickly just click and draw a box, for example, around neighboring counties. Okay? And then quickly it'll change, and then you can tell quickly where you are relative to your neighbors. Okay? So real quick, you can, if you want, you could click on, let's see here. I have a Mac, so mine's a little bit different. So you could randomly, pick counties that you'd like to compare yourself with. Okay? And again, it'll show you that comparison. The other thing that's great about this, okay, again, in the Green Book you have the most current year, but I want to know where I was, 2010, was I doing any better or worse? Okay, and one of the things that you see, there we go, okay, Waupaca County, interestingly, was, in terms of relative position, was doing well, but 5 years lost 4.6% of their jobs. Okay. You can go to unemployment and again look at the same thing. Quickly you get a sense of, in a lot of these measures, unemployment much worse in the north than the southeast. A lot of these measures you'll see that. We go back to the main page. Okay. We can look at some of the demographic things that we just talked about. Okay. Pick your county. And again, population growth, the county is lagging the state. Workforce, essentially your workforce population in percent is on par, but significantly older than the state. 20% of your population is 65 or older, compared to 16% for the state, 16.5%. And one of the things that we're seeing is that gap is going to grow. Waupaca County is a net out commuting county. So if you look at people that commute into the county, people that commute out, as a percent of your workforce, about 10% of your workforce is working in other counties rather than in the county. So a lot of interesting measures. We have had some suggestions from people on additional measures, and we're trying to incorporate them. If you have ideas of things, of pieces of information that you would like to see, let me know. Sometimes it's readily available. Sometimes they'd be great pieces of information to know, but we just we don't have the information. The finances is a great indicator of the gap in terms of reporting. When we put the book together last year, all we had available at that time was 2015 county spending. Now in this go round, we're already 2 years ahead, so we're at 2017. So that's an update. So that's just to show you. Again, if you're interested in county finances and how you measure up to statewide averages, you can get a sense of, again, where you're above average, where you're below average very quickly. And for example, highway spending, what do you look like compared to your neighbors? Let's draw that box again. Got a little big. But on a per capita basis, in the middle, a little bit on the higher side compared to your neighbors. And so, the first question you might ask is, okay, why is that? And there's usually a good reason for it, because you do things that other counties aren't doing. But it's a good place to start to make those comparisons. So the website is forward-analytics.net. I would encourage you to go take a look at it, sort of play around with it a little bit. It's a work in progress, so be a little bit patient. And let me know. You can call, you can email me if you have suggestions on the website. It was hard to navigate here. It was easy to navigate. Here's the kind of information I would like to see on it. Let us know, and we'll do the best to accommodate you.
Questions for Dale? Supervisor Craig.
It isn't a question, it's a comment. The last week or so, I've gotten 2 emails from Forward Analytics.
Yes.
So you're able to go to that email and from there get to your green book and to
Yes.
your website
Yes.
and the whole thing.
Yes.
For the people who maybe haven't opened that one yet, I always skeptically look at what, but I knew
Yes.
you from one of our
Yes.
committees, so I looked at it, and this is good. I appreciate having it.
Well, thank you. And there, I don't think it's there yet, but if you forget the name of the website, there will be a link from the Counties Association website to Forward Analytics. That'll be on the front page. So if you go there, you'll be able to click through to the Forward Analytics site.
Supervisor Moore.
On the website, is there a dash or something between the 2 words forward?
Yes, forward-analytics.
Thank you.
Yes. Yes.
And I can get Dale's card and pass that on to everybody.
Anyone else have a question? Thank you very much, Dale. Good stuff. Well, again, I want to thank our colleagues from Wisconsin County Association and really appreciate the valuable information, and sometime down the road we're going to have you back. How's that? Good deal. Thanks a lot. Okay, my monthly report, I just wanted to tell you, some of you have asked how you doing, because I was at the Mayo Clinic for a few days, and I do this every 6 months for a checkup, and everything was fine. I do want to do what Mark O'Connell had me do to the WCA board some years back, because it affects us men. Sometimes it can be younger than you think, not just an old guy like me. How cancer creeps up and you don't know you have it, you think you're fine, and you demand some certain tests, and there it showed that it was rampant and as bad as a scale of 7 to 10. That was 8 years ago. So I do want to tell that story. I'll get it on the agenda sometime, because that's good information for us men. It really is. If any help can be given, I can give you some hints. So with that, we go down to appointments.
We have 10A, we have to appoint Tom Jaden and Brenda Freeman to the Comprehensive Community Services.
Supervisor Lair.
I make a motion to accept them on the CCS committee.
There's a motion by Supervisor Lair and Supervisor Golding.
I second it.
and a second by Supervisor Golding. Questions or comments? Let's vote.
Last chance to vote. That motion carries 26-0. Our next appointment is to reappoint Ray Klussman and Bob Appleby to the Community of Aging for a 3-year term.
Supervisor Gerald Murphy.
I move to reappoint Ray Clausen and Bob Appleby to the Committee on Aging for that 3-year term.
Okay, there's a motion by Supervisor Gerald Murphy for that approval, and Supervisor Pullman,
I would second that motion.
and a second by Supervisor Pullman. Are there questions or discussion? Please vote.
Last chance to vote. That motion carries 26-0.
Okay, the announcements, their WCDC monthly report is with you, and also the delicious morning breakfast was by Supervisor Newman. Fat-free too, so thank you. With that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Supervisor, please.
I was wondering if you got enough clothes to get Tony Bennett here.
Is that a motion?
Was that a motion to
Adjourn?
adjourn? Okay, good, because I clicked you, Bob.
And Supervisor Johnson.
Second.
Second by Supervisor. We are adjourned.